Welcome back to the Alliance Theater Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Kahn. We're diving back into something special today. Let's throw it back to our pilot episode of Season 6 to revisit Covenant. Through the words of our Jennings Hertz artistic director, Tinashe Kajese Bolden. Tinashe is the visionary bringing York Walker's haunting story from the page to the stage. I've seen Covenant 3 times. I'm not a fan of scary things, and this show is pretty scary, but at the same time, it is an incredible experience with the audience. And Tinashe's work as the director is unbelievable, and the cast is stellar. Let's listen as she talks about what drew her to Covenant and how this haunted Southern Gothic world came to life.
Covenant is about Johnny. He is a blues guitarist who has found fame in Chicago. Johnny has come back to his hometown in rural Georgia and really is driven by a desire to reconnect with the one person who saw him for who he was and didn't try to make him into somebody else, and that's Avery. Avery is also longing for love and connection and being able to do it on her terms. She's the older sister of Violet, and Mama rules their home with the religious fist, really just in an effort for their salvation, that she believes she's doing the right thing to protect her daughters in a world that she thinks is sinful. But when Johnny comes back, there's rumors about his success, and was it really on his own merit, or did he in fact make a deal with the devil? And that's where our story begins. And it's a story about where the truth and rumors blur. It's a story for anybody that is wrestling with the weight of their own ambition and that pull of things that are outside of our control. It's the beliefs that bind us and keep us united as a family and a community, and then the beliefs that actually break us apart. And what are we willing to risk for the love that the world has told us we cannot have? So it's the thrilling thing about it is that we've always wanted to do a horror or supernatural piece or story, and those are hard to come by, really good ones. At the same time, we are always in pursuit of really exciting stories that lean into and really capture the Southern experience. And this story does it so well. I mean, York writes with the lyricism of August Wilson, but the supernatural thriller of a Stephen King novel. And the characters are so complex and woven together in such an interesting way that you don't realize you're becoming complicit in whatever this covenant is that they've all entered into.
Now that we've heard from the director herself, let's meet the mind behind the mystery. Our next guest is York Walker. York comes to the Alliance Theater with the suspense-filled Southern Gothic story of Covenant. He's chosen a short excerpt from Covenant to share with us. After his reading, York will unpack it all for us to describe what's unfolding between the characters and why this scene holds such weight within the larger story.
Okay, so this is the first full scene in the play, sort of the introduction of the characters we're going to be with on this journey. Avery, who is this young Christian girl in this town in Georgia in 1930s, and her best friend Johnny has been gone for 2 years, and he just disappeared mysteriously. And so he shows up again, and so they're reconnecting after 2 years, and he's gone away and become a big blues star. And before he left, he was terrible at the guitar. So he was terrible at the guitar. He was stuttering. He was sort of very nerdy, and now he's come back being amazing at the guitar. And his stutter is gone, and he's sort of a ladies' man. And these two have been friends since they were children. And now that they're adults, there's a little bit of, some romantic vibes happening between them. So this is part of that first scene after Avery has explained to him all of the rumors that have been going around since he's been gone about him supposedly making a deal with the devil. And he has denied that. And so Avery's asking him more questions about his time away. So why people call you honeycomb? Well, it depends on who you're talking to. Oh, is that right? That's right. Some folks call me that because when I play and when I'm deep in it, I start to sweat. And that sweat gets to going on my forehead and start to drip down my face thick like honey. Sweat ain't supposed to be thick. Sound like you need to drink more water. Well, some of the women, oh, the women, that's right, the women. You got women. Some, as in more than one. Well, yeah, kinda. That's what women mean, more than one woman. I know, but that's not exactly. You said the women. A woman once said to me, told me that my music draws you to me like a bead of fresh honey. Really. That's what she said. What? Well, let's hear it. Oh, now see, you the one with the voice. No, church singing is different. Besides, I want to know why this one woman calls you honeycomb. For all I know, she could be hard of hearing. That's cold, Avery. That's real cold. Come on here and stop stalling. Uh, what what you want to hear? Whatever's on your heart to play. All right. Oh, excuse me. Oh, let me just I love. All right. That was, yes. You like it? Yes, honeycomb. I'm calling you honeycomb from now on too. You see the sweat? I see it. There's a bead right there on your forehead, just waiting to fall like honey. But listen, Johnny, honeycomb, right? Honeycomb. I gotta get on. I got a few more songs. I really wish I could, but you know my mama, she ain't changed. All right. It was really good seeing you. How long you here? As long as I need to be to take care of some things. All right. Well, I better see you soon. You will. Don't worry. This first scene establishes the time period that we're in. It establishes two of our main characters. For me, whenever I'm seeing a play, I want my heart to sort of be open to the characters so that I can start to fall in love with them and go on the journey that they're about to go on. And I think comedy is a really beautiful way to do that because when you're laughing with a character, you're automatically like leaned in. And so I think having these two characters who have a history of friendship. Johnny comes back and he's discovered some swag and he's got these ladies and but the person that he wants is back home and he comes home with that swag and she knows him as the awkward kid that stuttered and like who only had one friend that was her. So it's like he's putting on these moves and it just doesn't work on her because she knows him so well. And so I just think that's a really interesting dynamic to watch. I think it's a really interesting dynamic also to play as an actor, sort of that push and pull of trying to convince someone to see you in a different way than they've always seen you without pushing too hard. So he's like navigating how to go about this. The way that the story came to me, I got this image of this girl in a blue dress surrounded by darkness. And I don't know why it just popped in my head out of nowhere. And so I was like, well, maybe this is the beginning of a play. And I always wanted to write a horror play. I was thinking about this image, and then I remembered the myth of Robert Johnson. And so I was like, okay, if these two things collided, what would it be? And that sort of was like the jumping off point for the play. Robert Johnson was a blues legend in the 30s who was said to have sold his soul at a crossroads to get his talent. And so there are all sorts of like stories about him and documentaries. I use that as sort of the guide. And so he was around in the 30s. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to set it in the 30s. And also the image of the girl in my head, it wasn't a contemporary dress she was wearing. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe that's why. Usually what happens is I'm thinking about a genre that I want to write in, or an idea or a question that I'm curious about. And then the story sort of builds from there. But I think this might be the first time where I had a specific image and the story came out from there. It almost feels like it's a collaboration with some other thing because it feels like there is a version of the story that is already written, and I'm just sort of tapping into that. And so it's a combination of the things that I'm interested in exploring and the story that I want to tell, and also something outside of me. Because sometimes things will come in that I wasn't, or characters will do things that I wasn't expecting. And so, yeah, it feels like this sort of dance with whatever that thing is, which sounds very woo woo, but it's after a play is done to a certain extent, and you have some time away from it, it feels less personal. And then getting into production for the first production in New York, being in rehearsal every day, it was like, oh yeah, this is very personal, and I forgot. And I think because of the genre, because it's horror, it's like, oh yeah, I wrote a horror play, and yeah, it's fun. It's a good. And then when you get in rehearsal, it's like, oh, all of these characters are like versions of me, or people that I know. And Mama says some things that I've heard my grandmother say, or like the tone of people that I know, who I grew up with in church, and those sort of things. When you pull from your real life, it helps the story, and sometimes you don't even realize that you're doing it. But I grew up in a very Christian household. I think growing up in that environment in one way was beneficial because I had a very strong moral compass, but I also had a whole lot of fear of God and doing anything wrong, and my life ending or the world ending, and then I've just committed a sin, and then I'm going to hell, and there's nothing I could. It just, like, as a child, I was constantly trying to work out, how do I stay in the good graces of God. And I think there are a lot of characters in this play that feel that way to different degrees. And then there are other characters who sort of feel sort of abandoned by God. And I have definitely had moments where I felt like that. I hope that within it being personal, it also feels universal. If you grew up in a Christian household, you're probably going to take away something completely different from somebody who didn't. Or if you are currently a Christian, or someone who was a Christian and not anymore, like it's going to be a different experience. But I do hope that people walk away from it feeling seen. Whenever I write a play, I try to write a play for a specific group of people, and then that's just the lens through which, like, I'm talking to them. It's going to be a good time for everyone, and everybody can come and get something from it and enjoy it. But my goal is that the people that I wrote the play for feel seen and less alone in the world.
If there's one thing I might take away from New York today, it's that humor goes a long way. Even in the middle of the most horrifying stories, every show has its wild backstage moments, the ones you laugh about later but were chaos in the moment. We've been collecting a few of those theater horror stories from the Covenant cast and crew to share with you today.
Hi, my name is Jade Payton. I play Avery in Covenant, and I am going to tell you a story that takes place at the Utah Shakespeare Festival. Ooh. The year was 2015. We were at the Utah Shakespeare Festival putting on South Pacific the musical. I was in the ensemble, so we're lots of other young women, college age. We really got close together during this time. And we just sang this ensemble transition song, this kind of dreamy, like, Bali High, da, 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 if you've ever heard that. We're all scrambling off stage, and we go downstairs to, like, put our little bows on and start our costume change and touch up our lipstick, and it's silence on stage. We, like, freeze our makeup brushes, like, isn't he, shh, shh, shh. The thing is, we're in the ensemble. Like, what are we really going to do? We can't go save the show. But the lead actor, had not made his entrance. All of a sudden, you hear the stage manager over, like, the God mic in the dressing rooms go, Michael, you're needed on stage. I have to pause here and say, we're in Utah, which is a very religious, and Cedar City's very religious. We literally got a decency like course at the beginning of the festival, talking about how, you know, we represent the Shakespeare Festival. Like, people are very sensitive to certain curse words, and, you know, we just kind of got a cultural education. Back into the story. What do you think this man screamed at the top of his lungs? It was the loudest F word I think I've ever heard in my entire life. Things were ringing and ringing and ringing, and you hear the stage manager get back on the mic like, "Michael, your mic is on," which only led to more cursing. This man like finally shuffles up stage. Like I think he had a wig change and everything. Like, he had gotten into the next costume, and we go back on stage, and one of the guys on stage improvised to the audience. He looks out and he goes, "War is hell, folks." And then that got a lot of laughter. And thank goodness, because what were we going to do to recover from that? And I think the funniest landing beat is that he has to do like the guy that when he finally makes his entrance, you know, he's like buttoning up. And then he has to do a French accent, which only made the whole thing funnier. Like, "I'm sorry, I had to, you know, of course. And then the scene is them in a war situation room trying to get really, really serious. So thank goodness there's more like jokes and like costume changes at the end of that show. But it was one of the tensest, funniest moments, only amplified by the setting of the show. And also our little cast gifts at the end were dog tags that said "War is hell, folks." So that was fun.
Hi, my name is Alacia Renee Duncan. I play Ruthie in Covenant, and I'm going to tell a story about a show I produced and a few mishaps that we had in that process. So over the summer, I was producing a play that I was also in for a festival called SheNYC. And this was really kind of like a two-woman show in terms of the behind the scenes. Like, it was me and my friend who was directing the show, and we were like running everything. You know, we were like producing this from the ground up, a lot of it with our own money. We were casting it, everything, scheduling everything, and everything was going just fine until our final week, right before we opened. Over the weekend, one of our actors got sick, and we were kind of in this limbo. We weren't really hearing back from him about his status and everything, but we kind of kept pushing forward with hope. And then towards the beginning of the next week, one of our other actors booked Law and Order, which, if you are a New York City actor, that's like a rite of passage, you know? So we were very excited for him. But he was very much convinced that he would be able to make both things work, even though they were filming on the day that we had to tech the show. We only got one day to tech for this festival. So about 2 days before that tech session, we had to replace both of those actors. And luckily, those roles in particular, while they were significant, it wasn't like we had to replace, like, for instance, me, who was the lead, and that would have been trouble for sure. So we were able to kind of get a couple of actors to come in, and it was manageable to have them learn what they needed to learn for our tech and then our two performances. So before we even got these actors, though, we were like texting people, DMing people, emailing. We were like, "Do you know an actor who might be able to do this? Do you know anybody who's available who last minute who could do this, who can be at rehearsal tomorrow morning and help us with this?" And luckily, we got two fabulous replacements. We were able to tech, and we put the shows up, and everything went as well as they could. But it was definitely pretty horrific and stressful those few days. And I was almost like, well, we either have to make this happen or, well, we have to make it happen, basically, is where we were at. So it was very much a show must go on situation, and I'm proud of how we pushed through it. And shout out to those actors as well, because they saved our lives. And me and my friend, who's the director, we sometimes will reflect, and we'll just be like, yeah, we were strong for that. We were really strong.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? My name is Jamarcus Kilgore. I play Johnny Honeycomb James in Covenant at the Alliance. Okay, so I don't have a lot of ghost stories, but I do have a theater horror story. I remember being like 16 doing The Little Mermaid at a theater, and we were in the middle of Tech Week. It's my first show ever. We're doing Tech. They're at that point where Prince Eric washes up on the stage. Oh, I was playing Prince Eric. So we're at that point where Prince Eric washes up on stage, and we're like, all right, hold. So we hold. And I'm like, I'm going to take a nap here. I close my eyes, I'm chilling, and out of nowhere I hear, "Move! Jamarcus, move, move!" And I'm like, what's happening? I open my eyes. The curtain and the metal rod in the curtain is coming down at full speed. And so I freeze and roll out of the way last second, and then the curtain goes thud. And I was like, that would have crushed my skull. That was terrifying. So yeah, no ghost stories, but some pretty scary stuff, if you will. Yeah. Come see Covenant.
For everyone listening, if you haven't seen Covenant yet, now's the time. Experience the chills, mystery, and the power of this Southern Gothic thriller live on the Hertz stage at the Alliance Theater. Tickets are available now at alliancetheater.org. Thanks again for tuning in to the Alliance Theater podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen so you won't miss our next episode. We'll see you at the theater.